I think you can make jokes about anything, but you have to accept that there will be people who don't like it.
I would be more surprised if everybody liked it.
And they are completely within their rights, just as you are completely within your rights to say whatever you want to say. They're within their rights to react how they're going to react.
So then, what seems to be the problem here?
I'm kind of interested in how you open this up. Yes, you do admit that you're allowed to tell and say whatever you want, especially in the form of comedic relief. But you say that people should be allowed to respond however they want. This is a fair statement to begin with, but how do these people respond? With criticism that the joke is offensive, that it's abusive, that it's too anti-PC, is what they say. But you see, when a form of logic becomes outdated, people need to stop using it. When a myth has been debunked, that myth needs to be eradicated from the world. But yet, there are still some scrabbles and holes in which people will still repeat that myth. And because some people repeat it, it's contagious. And it's not constructive for a society and environment to grow upon. If you want to progress and share one opinion, you cannot do that with political correctness. Because what political correctness is, literally to speak, a lack of logic while using things like emotions instead. It's not productive for, as I've said it before, a growing society. It's actually quite unhealthy for people wanting to express their minds. What people do, and what they should do instead, is be open to all kinds of dark, gritty comedy. Gallows humor, or whatever you want to call it. The darkest comedic humor you can get your hands on. The people that don't want to have to listen to this don't have to, because words do not burn down bridges, unless of course a protest in reaction to those words, such as the obvious politically correct liberals, they get offended, decide to burn down those bridges themselves.
So you can't be surprised or insulted if someone doesn't like a thing you said that is that you're making jokes on a controversial topic.
You mean they get to hurt my fee-fees and I can't do nothing about it? Well, no shit, Sherlock.
I think there's a lot of people who court that, and they want that because it's attention. It gets more eyeballs on them and what they're doing.
It's no lie that people try to be intentionally edgy and controversial to get the extra, popularity. I'm not going to pretend that's not a case. But when people do this, and I like how it's becoming a bigger thing, it's opening up the scale for more conversation. Is this morally right? Is this morally wrong? And because we get to discuss that like civilized people, the world will ultimately be better and shaped by that. And the consequences of bad actions, say you agree with something in the past, now you disagree with them, there is no consequences. You're free to go back and forth as much as you like. Sure, it may be a bit annoying, but that's called freedom of speech. And so what political correctness is it's censorship, direct censorship, and it doesn't allow anybody to progress. And I've said before that in a productive environment, a growing society, you have to make new changes, even though they may be scary. For instance, I've seen a lot of Nazi YouTubers lately, and really they've got some very intelligent points. But let's quit away from Nazism for a second, and just talk about what general comedy is. Rape jokes, suicide jokes, etc. Why is it that you people find the need to be offended about the concept of the joke, instead of the actual quality of the joke? People should be based, alongside their jokes, on the quality of their character, not just their beliefs. Their beliefs are indeed a choice, don't get me wrong, but if you can see past that, then yes, they can be good people regardless. What you're doing is that by censoring people, you're taking away their personality, therefore erasing anything good they have to say by silencing them with political correctness.
You're goddamn right I'm fucking pissed off that you have the gall to stand up there and tell me what I can and can't joke about. Especially after we just agreed that I have every right to joke about anything I want to.
But there's some people who do feign outrage at this, or they're genuinely feeling like, how dare you tell me what I can and cannot joke about? But I would say in most cases, Audiences are not telling them, you can't joke about this. What they are saying is, that wasn't funny.
Then it's not political correctness, is it? So the whole concept of your argument, which is you defending political correctness, is broken because you're not even sticking to that merit. Telling somebody a joke isn't funny, not because, it's offensive or anything, but because it's just not a funny joke, is not political correctness.
If they don't find the jokes funny, they don't have to listen.
And that's a different thing. I think you can talk about any topic, and I think you can make any topic funny. It depends on what your point is and where you're coming from. Audiences always know. They always know. And if you have a sound point that you're making, and it's well thought out, and it's well crafted, you can make me laugh at a thing that I think is tragic. You can make me laugh at a thing that I think is horrific. You can make me laugh at a thing that affects me personally.
May I hold up a mirror to you? Because you are both tragic and wildly hilarious in your depravity.
But if you've done your homework and you've gone about it the right way, it will still be funny.
Yeah, I agree.
But it's when people do, I think, a lazy job at something.
Fair enough. That was pretty lazy. How about this one? A cartoon character wears your mustache better than you do.
They're not trying as hard as they could. Or they really are just courting outrage. That's when audiences say, that wasn't funny. But I think it's so rare. It's so rare.
If members of my audience are offended and they decide to vote with their silence or to say, that's not funny, that's fine. They will no longer be members of my audience. And if everybody feels that way, I will be telling my jokes to an audience of no one. Who will I be offending then? Comedy isn't about creating a safe space where everybody feels comfy and secure. Sure, you can stand there and tell "why did the chicken cross the road" jokes all day long and not a single person will be offended, but that's not comedy.
That anyone says you're not allowed to joke about that. Tastes change over the years. And so topics that were routinely joked about years ago that might affect certain people, maybe it's something that happened to someone, and we throw a word around because it's a shocking punchline and it's good for a laugh. But is it worth it?
Yes, very, very much worth it. Comedy must prevail at all costs. Well, to some extent. But free speech must prevail in order to build the constructive society we need. It needs to be ripped from other humor. It needs to be inspired, influenced. Comedians have done this for decades. In fact, back in the ancient days, the dark eras, comedy was even more edgy. When you tell a joke to somebody who's just experienced something horrible, it's not political correctness to tell them to fuck off. What the case is here, and what the reality is here, is that that has nothing to do with political correctness. Say you were going to a Jewish bar, and you started telling some anti-Semite jokes. Now, they may not like that, but if the jokes themselves are funny, why does it matter? In all honesty, why does it matter that they're against you? People can tell jokes against me all they want. If the jokes are good, who cares? If the jokes are bad, I'm going to criticize the fact that this joke didn't work because, in detail. That's how comedy works, and constructive criticism. Political correctness is not constructive criticism, it's censorship.
The fact that you have become irrelevant doesn't mean that you get to dictate the types of jokes that I tell. Have you seen South Park? Who do you think is the target audience of this show? It's certainly not you. And the reason why this show, which is so rude and crude and offensive, that prides itself in taking the piss out of every group of people they can, is still on the air, is because there's an audience for it. An audience that enjoys it and can appreciate it for what it is. Not everyone will tune in and watch South Park because it offends them. But that doesn't mean that South Park doesn't have the right to exist and tell the jokes that it does.
And over time, people who are tired of being ashamed because a thing happened to them, they vote with their silence, or they say, That's not funny. And I think that comedians have to recognize that humor evolves and times change, and you can't stay stuck in the same place for too long, because then you're irrelevant.
Regardless of what the comedy is to you, that you enjoy it or not, that doesn't mean you have the right to take it away or censor people.
And so it's very easy to say, oh, people are too uptight now. They're too uptight. But the fact of the matter is, these people are the people of today. And you might be a person of yesterday if you can't adjust and you can't be in tune with what people think is funny anymore.
You, sir, you are a person of yesterday. You are the one who is not in touch with what is going on today. How dare you lecture me on this topic? We have individuals on the internet who are telling us that simply because we're men, we're sexist. And simply because we're white, we're racist. And simply because we're cis, we're transphobic and homophobic. Do you have any idea what the audience of today actually has to listen to and put up with? And those regressives, those are the people who you are defending. You should be ashamed of yourself.
I don't think I've ever said anything where an audience turned on me in that way. I've said things that now I wish I hadn't said because times have changed. And like the me of 15, 20 years ago made a joke that I wouldn't make today because...
You're afraid to offend people? Is that it? Therefore, they're holding you back from your true potential.
Just because I look at the world differently now, you know? And because the world is different now. And
yes, the world is different now. It's a much darker, scarier, more dangerous place. And that's all the more reason why we need uncensored comedy to cope with it.
The current year argument is not a progressive one even in the slightest. You can say the current year applies to anything. Literally, you can make up anything relevant and therefore you're censoring people from saying it just because it's the current year. Well, guess what? 2016, this year, 2015 behind it was also the current year. And 2014, and if you keep going down, the current year is literally any year. Any year that comes up is the current year. You can't use that as an excuse against somebody saying something.
You know, it's all part of a maturation process, I think, for everybody. And I'm of the school that says adapt or die, you know. And so if this is not a thing that we joke about anymore, I'm going to find something else to joke about. Or I'm going to be better at handling these subjects so that people know what my intent is. And my intent is not to mock the victim here. It's not to mock the little person. I'm ridiculing something that is worthy of ridicule, and that every word out of my mouth is worth saying. And, you know, just not to be cheap, I think, is a tiny thing, but it's kind of important.
You are a sad, strange little man, and I cannot take this hypocrisy any longer. Øbail, you got any final thoughts, buddy?
I don't exactly think you know what political correctness is. You're using steps to avoid offending people of specific groups. It's unnecessary and wasteful, is what I'm saying about political correctness. Free speech must prevail. Anyway, thanks Alien Observations for allowing me on this video. You're really awesome.
And thank you, Øbail. It was a privilege. Oh shit, I gotta check that. It was an honor to work with you. Thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like and subscribe, but most importantly, have a great night.